Hello. It has been a while. I've been quite busy between Dawn Trail things and a big launch at work things and moving to a new apartment things, and I'm still in the moving to a new apartment things, but we've got enough set up that we can sneak in this box opening video for Attack on Titan Battle for Humanity. Thanks to UVS Games as always for sponsoring this, and if you haven't seen one of my box openings before, I try to do less of the, focusing on the pack ripping and, card art and whatnot. I try to just talk about just my thoughts about cards power level wise, call out ones that I think are interesting for one reason or another. This set is a little bit thinner on, standard type playables. It was a little more designed for, the Spotlight format to be operational, so it's very big, has, a wide range of power levels in it, but we should still be able to find a card in each pack that's worth talking about, I think. And, as usual, low budget setup. You have no idea how scuffed this setup is if you were to see my desk right now, but we're going to make it work. We're going to get this done, and then after this, once I'm settled in, there's a couple other videos I want to make. I'm probably not going to try to keep up with the news at this point. I think UVS Games is doing a much better job of covering that stuff, on their socials and their website and whatnot than they were when I first started. And there's a lot of other content creators covering that stuff now too, so that started to feel a little bit redundant, so we're just going to kind of make videos when we feel like making videos. And yeah, starting up with this Attack on Titan box opening. So I've taken the wrapper off. If you are new to UVS, each booster box comes with 24 packs. Each pack has 11 cards in it. That includes always one character card. New to this set, there's different rarities of the characters, but so it's a little cooler to open, an ultra or secret rare character than the other ones. But at the end of the day, none of them are going to be particularly hard to get. It's not too big of a deal. Just kind of a cute little thing that they're doing. We're pretty zoomed in here. Hopefully, you don't have too much of a glare problem. But to make a mess on my floors, I just kind of toss these packs aside because I have nowhere else to put them. But that's fine. So, here's our first pack. We're not going to, name the cards. We'll fan through the comments for a little while here. CG and Kirsten. First character in the pack. We got a Survey Corps asset. And a few nice uncommons here. Alright, so I haven't had a chance to really play Constructed with this set outside of the pre-release sealed events and whatnot. And I believe we've done a draft. But I was looking at Gene earlier today, so let's talk about Gene a little bit. So this guy is not considered to be one of the standouts, so to say. He's not one of the, I think right now competitively people are pretty high on Mikasa, Reiner, and Smiling Titan, and to some extent Ymir. Gene's a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of that, but he is pretty interesting. If you can generate some momentum, that enhances very, very, very good to get a zone change and plus or minus 3 speed. And certainly with Air and Chaos, there's plenty of ways to get some momentum. I was looking at him a little bit. I was looking for a nice defensive Air 6-hander, because Air has some tools right now that are kind of interesting for the meta. But he has this response where you have to clear a card to get the momentum. And of course, there's a couple foundations that clear themselves in this set that are kind of interesting. So I don't know. He's going to one I'm going to muck around with a little bit on Ultra and see if I can make a list that I like. I don't know if I'll ever actually build him, but I think he's pretty interesting. And if I can find something that looks like it might work, I may try it out. So one of the things about this set is the counts per rarity are a little askew relative to other sets. And the way it works out is that commons and uncommons are very similar in rarity, and rares and ultra rares are very similar in rarity. Uncommons are still a little more rare, and ultra rares are still a little more rare, but for the most part, a really nice normal rare open in this set is a very good thing. We're told. Oh, and unexpected outcomes. This is one of the hotter ultra rares of the set for sure. 9 difficulty is an awful lot, but this card does an awful lot for it. I think compared to a lot of the other high difficulty attacks in this set, where you're paying the high difficulty and basically just getting stats, this gives you a very unique and a very powerful ability for the difficulty that you're paying, which, can make it worth it in sort of a long game type of deck. You play this thing, you get to pick apart your opponent's hand. Anything they might be saving up, you get to throw it right back at them. I've heard people are having some pretty good success with this card so far, and I am quite happy to open it for sure. Held kick, fast trends, and at some point I'm going to start talking about commons and uncommons. It's just early on, you run the risk of sort of narrowing your options, so it's good to talk about the higher rarity cards if you can. We're not really going to talk about side advantage though. That card is not good. I mean, there's a world where it's okay, but I don't think that card's going to see too much play. You face your rival, deadly research, and against a tough bunch. Tough bunch is an interesting one. I am very curious how much standard play this will or won't end up seeing. You know, being able to blow up a foundation for, you know, sooner or later burning your opponent for 3 is pretty compelling. I don't know if it's, you know, we have foundations at 2/5 that commit for basically guaranteed +2 as soon as your opponent doesn't block an attack. So remove for 3 is not that much better, but it is, you know, 50% better. And this card has a pretty decent block. So it's going to be intriguing to see if people try this card out. I think we've had 2/5s that blow up for 4 damage that haven't really seen play. I forget if that actually got reprinted in the Bebop Challengers or not, but this is a nice middle ground where you know the attack's going to hit when you blow up your foundation. You get 3 every time. That health loss can kill the rival, which makes sense because they just took an unblocked attack. This is basically just giving it +3 damage, so that's perfectly fair. Kind of an intriguing card. You might see sneak into some decks that need offense. You know, there are a lot of characters out there that, you know, their defense is very good and they need to figure out how to kill people, you know? And a foundation like that is just always going to turn into 3 damage might be more compelling than, you know, a normal stats foundation where you don't really know if you're going to get the value out of it or not. We have some wall stuff. Reconsider. It's a spicy one. Jean's back again. Grab the moment, which might be good later on when there's better freeze support, but probably not that relevant right now. Trying to reach Aaron. This is a card that I've seen get a bunch of attention. So, you know, first form, just look at the top card of your deck is pretty good. We have that ability in a spam that sees like a little bit of a play, so that's not that crazy, but you know, the enhanced to do, there was a 1 difficulty 5-check foundation that flipped to do this in the first MHA set that was basically a staple. Doing that on a commit on a 2/4 foundation is a very different rate, but that is still an incredibly powerful effect. You commit, you name attack, and if it's not an attack, at least you know what your next check's going to be. I can see especially decks that blow up foundations or ready foundations. This is certainly the best throwaway commit enhance, or one of the best ones you're going to find, where you just need to commit a foundation for something so that your destroy effect or your pick up a foundation effect or your ready effect gets use out of it, right? You never really want to destroy ready foundations, and sometimes you have a destroy character, you know, a destroy cost character, and you check a 5 on your first move, and you're just like, well, I really don't want to blow up a ready foundation, but here we are, right? I need to do it to do my thing. And so sometimes having a foundation that can just commit to do something that's really good, that's always really good, has some value in decks like that. Predictable maneuvers. We might talk about that one. That one gets my attention a lot. Cost of defeats Aaron Yeager, who has a flip side of Aaron Attack Titan, which is kind of neat. We have a little gas propellant. Terrific Trio, Fiery Stare, and Nullifying Force. Alright, we sometimes only see 1 copy of an uncommon in boxes of this set because it's so big. So I want to talk about Fiery Stare. I like Fiery Stare. I don't know how much play it's going to see, but I'm definitely one of those people that really values draw 2 and then discard 2 more than discard 2 then draw 2. And the little stat bonus on it is nice. I think one thing that's kind of cool about this card is we see a lot of these types of draw effects on 4 difficulty attacks, when they're very often things you want to start your attack string with. They're kind of appropriate to be on 5 difficulty attacks, and for whatever reason we see them on 4 diffs because they're considered more utility type effects or whatever. But I like seeing it here on a 5 difficulty that will very often have 5 difficulty stats, right? It'll very often be a 5 mid for 7. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, it's a 5 diff that works as your first attack, which is generally what you want 5 diffs to be. You don't really want 5 diffs that mainly want to be later in the string unless they're really huge bombs. So this is a pretty neat one. Has 2 keywords on it, Fury and Ranged. I think this will see a home somewhere at some point in Standard. Let's see what's next here. A little barring the door. Display Might. Levi. Intensity of Mikasa Ackerman. That card is in the starter deck, the Clash deck, I believe. It's one of the ones you can get there. Alright. Let's see, what do we want to pick out of this? This one doesn't have too many obvious choices. Let's talk about Levi a little bit. He doesn't get too much attention. Picking up an attack from your card pool is pretty good. You know, it's kind of, you know, you're getting an attack, you're clearing a card from your card pool. It's sort of quote unquote, maybe that looks normal compared to what Mikasa's doing on lots and lots of attacks. But Levi put some stats on it. I think this is the guy I'm going to build if and when I build a Spotlight deck. I believe our local qualifiers are going to be Spotlight, so I might try to build Levi for that. Just a nice, simple, you know, just basically effective, put some stats on his moves, doesn't need to worry too much if some of his attacks are technically a little understated or whatever. Should be pretty operational. One thing to note is you can use that enhance on defense, right? You can block with a weapon card and then pick it up and then block again, and that's pretty neat. So I'm kind of interested in throwing him together for Spotlight whenever I have one of these events coming up. Vengeful Intent. A second dodge, that's a pretty good one. Marco. Getting back in formation. Fight to the death, fight for survival, and first official kill. I'll talk about last second dodge. There's not too much to say about that. This card's pretty simple, reasonably effective. You know, flip for -2 speed is 1 time as good as commit for -3 speed, and people are pretty happy to play those a lot of the time. Obviously, you only get to do this once, but you also get a little bit of throw hit on it, and you get a decent mid block. There was an old card called, man, I want to say Kirin Soul. I might be forgetting the name, but that card saw a pretty decent amount of play, and that had a very similar type of effect. Granted, at the time there were some much scarier throw types of attacks around, but yeah, being able to get -2 speed and take off throw means, you know, one way or the other, you have a couple different modes for which this attack can be effective. Normally, if you don't need speed hate, they're playing a bunch of slow moves. That very often means they have some throws in there, so pretty unlikely to be dead. A pretty neat card, worth checking out. All right. Ripping the pack off screen is probably not ideal. I just bump the camera. I finally have the camera hooked up to something that is not the desk that I'm doing this on, which is progress, but doesn't help if I bump into it anyway. Anyhow, let's see what we have here. What is kind of neat, when the set is this big, you see a lot of entirely different commons that like you haven't seen in your box yet. Loyalty of a Friend as a rare. A little breaker block on this foundation. I don't actually remember what that one does, so we're just going to read it live, and if it sucks, right? Loyalty of a Friend, it commits to give -1 damage for each backup on your stage. Okay, yeah, that's terrible, and okay, I see why I ignored this card. Backups right now, not very good. We'll see if the set 2 backups are tuned a little bit better. Right now, this card is... you know, somebody's going to try and build the backup theme deck at some point and see if they can make anything out of it. I think we need more backups to be released that are more palatable power level wise. But, you know, at some point this card might see some play if that happens. You know, we only have one set worth of backups, and if they stick with that card type long term, then sooner or later, you're going to be able to play a deck with, you know, 10 plus backups in it and have it make sense. Alright. It's down. Scene, Bearded Titan. Bring into action Nape Strike, Death Rattle, and Titan's Power. Spring actually, this was a neat one to come up in limited for sure. You're very much more often going to cycle your deck, and having an enhanced commit for stun 2 is pretty good. The flip burn for 2, you know, we think I was just talking up another foundation that removed for burn 3. This is much less reliable. You're definitely here for this late game stun 2 effect. And, you know, commit for stun 2 can be quite strong, especially if your character has some ready effects on it. It is a little weird to play a card that's kind of an expressly late game card, but there are decks where it might make sense to include something like that, especially if you just need the low blocks, right? But I don't know if that one will ever actually see play, but I could see myself putting it on, you know, the 100 card UVS Ultra list if I'm short on low blocks and thinking about it a little bit. My deck, if I have some self-mill in my deck for sure. To take some good commons in this one for sure. Krista, the attack titan emerges. Wait, activate, adjusting the plan. Yeah, attack titan emerges. This is certainly one of the better rares. Playing an attack, and this even works when you block with it. Being able to swap your foundations around. Obviously, you don't get to swap a face down for a face up foundation, but you know, a lot of times we just saw a sort of niche utility 2 difficulty foundation, and sometimes you're going to be playing some of those, right? You're going to have a bunch of 2 diffs that you kind of do something in certain matchups that's really good and worth including in your deck, but in this matchup it's not that great, and Attack Titan Emerges can trade it out for whatever the best 1 diff in your discard pile is. So that can be pretty good. I expect this to have some homes, especially maybe in some, well, not in a 4-check theme deck, because this one particularly checks a 3, but maybe in decks that are playing some 4 checks and going a little bit heavy on 3 diff foundations as a result. You can turn you know, one of your 3 diffs into a useful 2 diff, that sort of thing. And Charge Slam on Death might also be some less common keywords off the top of my head. But it may even see play just to be doing that. Stiff. Dramatic Scene again. Jumping Hanj. The Apathy of Annie Leonhardt. Bolt at Bay. Connie's Stand. Besiege. Let's talk about Besiege just in case the only one we open. This card is very silly. I have been known to play cards that are kind of shaped like this in the past. There's an old card called Mukuro Fuji that I played a lot. Anything you play that your opponent might just not be able to block at all because it has a weird can't be blocked unless rule. Has a chance to be really good, and this is like a slightly overstated 3 diff. It has a deadlock that matters, right? They'll have to respect it even more. The presence of this card almost makes, you know, +3 mid blocks a bit of a feature on some cards, because I think we're going to see this one a lot, especially in decks that can pump its stats. Certainly one of the first decks I'm built is going to involve Besiege and some other stuff that is pretty annoying to block for one reason or another. Maybe we'll open the old Play Fighting. That's one of the cards that we're looking to put in that deck. All right, I see some fancy border. Titan Small, Boring Respite. I'm about to be a little disappointed in my secret. Okay, well, so I'm not very happy about the card underneath this, but the alt art character, can't complain at all. So long as there's an attack in your card pool, you get to always know what the top card of your deck is. Does a little foundation bouncing around between his hands, top of his deck. This kind of ability, these abilities can be very good. Obviously, you need to find your stats somehow. But, you know, Armist interesting character, and getting the alt art is obviously quite welcome. Secret rare. I don't have too many good things to say about this card, so I just won't. It's a bit of a jokey joke card. A little unfortunate to have something like that in the secret rare slot, but it is what it is. And yeah, but we definitely are happy to get a nice alt art character. Not necessarily one of the most popular ones, but I'm sure Armin has his fans. I'm kind of curious if people find anything to do with this character that really adds up. The life and order symbols at that. So chase down. Honor bound with Y. Seal. Akasa herself. Akasa at Utgard Castle. In their own field by tragedy and Titan Pile. So yeah, we might as well talk about Mikasa. This is a hot topic. Right now, people are very irritated with this character, it seems. You know, committing a foundation to draw a card, discard a card, clear your card pool. You can kind of keep doing that for a pretty good while. You start with 7 cards in your hand, so you don't really need every card to hit to be able to keep going, and you get to play other, ready foundation effects. Your attacks are getting really fast. They're all going to hit eventually. You get to play other pool clear effects if you need to. And you hear tales of Mikasa playing, 10 plus attacks in a turn on turn 3 or something like that, and kind of getting overwhelming. So people seem to have some power level concerns about this character. I haven't had a chance to play with or against it in the wild. We'll probably build it locally, to make sure that people are testing against it and that sort of thing. But definitely one of the standout characters of the set here. Perspective, Swift Swipe. We haven't seen too many ultra rares yet, but it looks like we're going to get one in here. Attack Titan's Destructive Power. This is the pre-release card, was very, very cool looking. It's one of my favorite alternate treatments in the set. This one, looks fine. I think all the ultra rares look pretty good with the silver border and the manga around it. The card itself, I don't want to poo-poo Ruin 2. Right, just getting to play possibly 7 diff attack, and maybe you committed a couple extra foundations to play it, but they had to destroy 2, and that's kind of neat. Can be a little bit helpful, granted it's long game only. But, I've had some people tell me that this card is better than I'm giving it credit for, so we'll talk about it a little bit here. And I see the vertical maneuvering equipment there. Maybe we open another one of those, because that is certainly a big, big card in this set. And, I was talking up Gene earlier, and that kind of also does his thing, and you can just put it in any deck and become Gene, which is a little awkward for poor Gene there. Medium, shocking, both its size, call for a ride. Anyway, we got the Beast Titan. This is, it's hard to tell because they all just kind of have the same treatment, but this is the secret rare character in the set. It's about 1 per 3 box, a little bit rare to get him, but we also have a Pearl rare in this. Intimidating Command. These Pearl rares look very nice. Obviously, manga was originally in black and white and meant to be that way, so going with the Pearl and Obsidian rare treatments make a lot of sense in this set. Weird card. Commit all foundations with the difficulty 2. I wonder if you could build a deck that just has 3s, 1s, and 0s in it and just start playing these things. That could be pretty funny, actually. Volatility. Mission. I'm kind of just bumbling through some card names there. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of shinies peeking out at the start of the packs, which usually means there's an ultra rare or higher in it. I think we're getting a string of ultra rares here, actually. Honey Springer, Female Titan attacks. Nice shift attack. So if you haven't seen for whatever reason, these shift attacks have backup sides to them. So after you attack with them in particular, right, you have to have actually played the card as an attack. They turn into this backup side, and Female Titan's backup side is pretty compelling. If you manage to somehow get her to stick around, which is very hard to do with a backup, she gets to mill 2 and go pick up any punch or kick from your discard pile. That's pretty spicy. That's pretty strong. This is one of the more compelling backup shift attacks, especially since there's another card that will just free build a 7 difficulty shifter backup, I believe, from your discard pile. And I think this card fits into a little half of a package around these 7/4 attacks that hopefully gets a little more fleshed out in the second set, because I think if it gets another piece or two, there could be something pretty neat there. Glare, capture the target. All these commons that we may not have even seen in any neat packs yet. Commander's Rage. Dig Deep. Generation. Skilled Swordsmanship. Alright. Is this going to be the first pack where there's nothing in here that I particularly like? Possibly. Well, we can't be too mad about Hans. We can talk about Hans. Hans is neat enough. So he gets wall counters for blocking and for playing cards with wall counter themes on it, right? And he has this scaling damage bonus that can get as high as +7, which would take a lot of work. But we've seen effects like this. Obviously, in younger Togoro's case, you get there a lot faster, and he's a lot more powerful overall, and got errated and all of that. But even in a like a girl power Godzilla only tournament, we saw a bunch of Komori, the mushroom girl, just doing this kind of, I'm slowly going to build up a huge free damage pump on my character. We've seen the old Shoto Todoroki 1 having success doing this sort of thing, so don't underestimate this kind of ability on it. And the print and speed reset is certainly welcome. He does, you know, he quote unquote does nothing besides the big damage and the speed reset. It feels pretty basic and simple, but that can just be quite of a good package, especially if we get more wall counter support in the second set. I'd certainly put a little respect on Hans there. Lost his faith in the walls. There's some wall counters. Got a second reconsider, possibly a third. There's Reiner. Smiling Titan attacks. Failed rescue meeting Hanj, and more Nape Strike. We should talk about Reiner, one of the other big boogeyman characters in this set. So on his face, he's basically just kind of tanky. He's 34 health, kind of gives everything -1 damage. Once per turn, he can give something -2 damage because when he sacrifices foundations, he can just rebuild them once per turn. But that's kind of all he's doing, is just being a big tanky idiot. And then once he transforms, you know, your rival has to flip 4 foundations, and then you're going to start blowing them up. In particular, that enhance in the middle of the card gives your attack damage, but it can be used on their attacks too. So basically, anytime an attack is played, you get to commit or blow up a foundation and make them blow up one. So if they're not, you know, really adamantly making sure that they're, building a lot more than usual, right? He can really devastate someone's entire board. And not every deck is built to, be able to go into, spend their turn 4 building 4 foundations, right? This is one of the weird things about Reiner is in the past when we've had foundation destruction decks, they've been very much about choking you out early. And Reiner, sort of takes his time. He's going to do it later on, but he gets to blow things up a lot more efficiently than some of those other characters did. So in a sense, it's not as oppressive as some of the stuff like Jada that got banned. Some of the Raptor stuff that was going on. There was a foundation destruction meta around, I think it was 2019 Nationals, where that was kind of what was happening. It was just a lot of top decks were just denying foundations over and over. And he's not going to look quite like that, right? He needs to get up to 9 foundations, then he needs to transform, and then he needs to ideally make you flip some more things. You may want to think twice about playing flip cause, so long as this guy's a bit of a menace. But through all this, he's still going to be really hard to kill. He loses his his freebie minus damage, but he can still just put an attack to 1 with a momentum on face here. So definitely a guy to be aware of going forward into this format. Alright. Which more bar the door? Primitive. Big Mouth Titan. This is my chance. Casting Death Rattle, Titan's Power. Alright, this is my chance. I believe this is one of the other cards you can get in the Clash decks. This is probably the best card you can get in the Clash decks, although I'm kind of warm on, Positional Advantage comes in the Levi Clash deck. But this is a very interesting card. 1/4 foundations don't always see a whole lot of play. This one's kind of doing something neat. It gives something 2 speed, and if that's not enough to stop your opponent from blocking it, then you get to clear it from your card pool. People don't play a whole lot of 1/5 flip for 2 speed, so 1/4 flip for 2 speed doesn't help you too much if they, if that means they don't block it. But using this on a big move that you think they're definitely going to block and getting the clear out of it, flip for a clear is crazy good on a 1/4. So interesting balance there. If you think for sure you've got something that they're going to have to block, you can make their block both harder and clear the card for it. This seems really, really strong. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to put it into practice yet, but that is a heck of a card on its face. Trouble with the pack here. Alright. Activations. Dogged Plea. Strict Throw Submit. Asha. Crisis of Confidence. Marco. Line up this shot. Jaws of Life. Line up this shot. This is a cool one. I keep trying to put this card in like UVS Ultra lists when I've made them. You know, 4 mid 6 ranged weapon throw. I believe Vexalia from the Critical Role is kind of salivating to have a nice ranged weapon attack. And this card lets you play a throw in your deck that both has decent speed and a decent block. And that's not very common, right? It's not the most excitingly statted thing, right? It's just a 4 mid 6, but 4 mid 6 throw with a +1 mid is, you know, quite nice thing to be getting. And I could certainly see a lot of decks, you know, popping a couple of these in there if they're not too heavy on 5 diffs. Nice thing to start your string with. It's one of those cards where you play this and your opponent doesn't really know where you're going with your turn. Right? You could just be lobbing this as a throw. You could be, you know, if they have to spend resources, they decide to spend resources blocking it, first of all, they're still going to take 3 damage, and then you might be able to take advantage of them committing stuff to it. They might just take the full 6 a lot of the time. I think this card, for as simple as it is, could have a lot of like little you know, sort of subconscious in-game effects. Oh, Smiling Death. That might be our card for this pack. Is that the first one we've seen? There really are a lot of commons in this set, my goodness. Massive Swing, Annie's Gamble, Crush the Cavalry, Raise Walls, yes. Smiling Death, you can expect to see this one a bunch. You know, anyone who knows me knows that I like playing things that target out my Rebels Foundations, and yeah, this one pays you for having destroy costs in your deck. So if your character, you know, I obviously have Death Arms in my mind pretty often. This goes great in him. You see Reiner decks playing it to, you know, trigger his stuff and then flip one of their foundations, your choice. Yeah, there's lots of stuff that characters that have the death symbol that have destroy costs on it that will probably pretty happily put this card in, because you're going to be destroying foundations sooner or later anyway, and getting sort of a quote-unquote free flip out of it is pretty nice. You know, in a sense, it's not that different from the old Apathetic card, like the 2, but that was a 2/4 that just enhanced flipped, which is basically what this ends up doing, right? You don't flip the card to flip something, but you're destroying it, so you might as well have flipped it, right, if you're going to flip an Apathetic and to destroy it. But instead of a 2/4 bad block, you get a 2/5 with a decent block. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty popular card. 3 packs left here. Night Terrors, 57th, Rashes, Plead for Reason. Ymir. Final Words, Seething Anger, Willing Recruits and Hindering the Armored Titan. Speaking of Foundation Destruction, kind of on a little sub-theme here, this is another piece you can expect to see in a lot of those decks. You know, certainly you need to know that you're ending your turn, and you don't really get to use this to lock up a kill, but if you're just out there to, you know, cut down on their foundation count and try to repress them on that front, you'll see a lot of those types of decks running Final Words. You know, also decks that are kind of more defensive in nature. If they have a key offensive piece, this can shut them down. Pretty unique effect. We haven't seen this a lot of the times. You know, point and click, you know, get rid of foundation stuff is primarily offensive and sometimes defensive. And this one, in exchange for being pretty strong, is almost strictly defensive. Although, you know, if you know they're not going to kill you, you can use it to set up, you know, attack string next turn, of course. Pretty good on to get that rare, actually. That one's a nice one that I'm happy to open for sure. We haven't seen Risky Encounter yet, which is kind of the big rare to open. But we also got the Unexpected Outcomes. It's been a decent box, aside from the secret rare, of course. There's Smiling Titan, Double Bladed Spin, Causes Unrelenting Assault, Lucky Break, Annie's Leg Sweep. Oh, let's see. What do we like here? I don't really want to talk about Smiling Titan. If I've played enough Sealed, it's kind of annoying in Sealed. Yeah, whatever. We'll talk about Double Bladed Spin. It's an ultra rare. So this is, it's kind of funny, these types of effects keep getting like a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker. We had Stun Grenade, which saw lots of play, and then we had Dimension Sword in the Yu Yu Hakusho set, which was kind of a bit of a weaker Stun Grenade, and the weapon theme on those symbols isn't strong enough to really see if that would see play or not. This on the death symbol, there are weapons on these symbols, so that's nice to see. But it's the same, you know, mill 3, pick up a weapon tech, and if you happen to be playing Weapon Foundations, you pick that up too. That's kind of a neat feature. I don't know if it's neat enough to play 4-3, 3 mid, 4 bad block. But it's kind of a cute take on that kind of ability, and I appreciate double-bladed spin, even if it's, you know, probably not that good. Sharp weapon. Losses. Armin's Fate. It's like one more ultra rare before we're done. Ravages of War. Horse Toss, and Toothy Bite. So Ravages of War is definitely one that's seeing some play in these Smiling Titan decks and in some other ones. You know, possibly in some high difficulty themed Reiner decks. But this is the last pack. I'm just going to talk about Horse Toss Gunhead. I'm going to build that at some point and try to throw horses at people. That's kind of all I have to say about that. Gunhead makes this thing 3 difficulty and picks it up out of his discard pile and says catch this 9 damage throw. And I don't know what I'm doing with the rest of my game plan, but this is funny. So we're building that at some point. And yeah, that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up for this Attack on Titan box opening. Didn't have too many packs that felt like complete dud packs. There's a pretty interesting card in most of them. And yeah, so, you know, even though a lot of cards in the set are kind of feel like, you know, shaft, so to say, because it's such a big set, there's still a lot of relevant cards in it. It's still a set worth getting yourself familiar with, and I'm looking forward to doing that over the coming weeks as we start getting into some constructed locals and whatnot. But that'll be a wrap for this. For my next video, I'm presumably going to do one of those top prospects lists where, you know, we talk about some characters that aren't, you know, kind of the big 3 from Attack on Titan, or characters that we've seen already have success. And kind of go through some of those that I think are very good. Obviously, Death Arms is going to be on that list. I've already talked about him. There's some other people talking about him. He's pretty interesting right now. But, you know, there's always others worth talking about. We'll try to fashion a top 20 list and go through that. That may be a week or 2 or something. We'll see how this moving process goes, but please look forward to that. All right, until next time, have a good night.